All right, guys, believe it or not, we made it to the last video of this series. Thank you for bearing with me. I know it's been kind of rough. This is my first YouTube series. I promise they'll get a little more smooth. But I hope you've at least found it beneficial. And again, you know, if I'd love to hear from you guys, get some feedback. If you think it was great, you know, give me a thumbs up. But if you have comments or you would like to see something different, please throw it in the comment thread. Let me know. Or you can reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever. But let's jump into this last little bit. We're going to talk about handoff prep. What is a good thing to do to, you know, what are some of the things you should do to prepare yourself to give this to your developers or your designers or your stakeholder, whoever it may be, in a way that's clean, concise, and that they can get the information they need. So, as always, let's hop over into Zoom and get started. So you can see I've made another page here. I'm just calling it Handoff. The reason I have all of these different pages throughout Figma, when I'm making a design system, you know, if I'm working on typography, I might have 10, 20 versions of this stuff while I go through and I analyze the different typography choices and make my decisions. Same with grids. I might have a ton of different examples of the grid system, or my color palette. I might go through 10 iterations. So this will get a lot more full when you do this in real life. So it's good to have everything broken down into its own section. But when it comes time to hand something off, I like to put everything in one place so that, let me rephrase that, I like to put all of the final decisions in one place so that people don't have to comb through the entire file to get what they need. That's why I make this handoff section. So very quickly, we're going to go through and we're going to grab everything we need. I'm going to grab my color palette and I'm going to paste it in here, and we're going to pray that everything is somewhat similar in size. You know, I just threw this frame up. I didn't use an actual frame size, so fingers crossed. And we'll just label this color palette. Now let's go to our type scale. I'm going to grab both of these actually, because we want to have both of them. They'll both be very beneficial. And we'll copy these, and I'm not just moving them because I want to have them there for me to work on as well if I make changes, but I am copying them over. Everything just got a little bit covered up. There we go. So the sizing is a little off. Obviously, this color palette could be scaled up a little bit to match, but I'm not overly concerned about it right now. I guess we could outline the stroke and scale everything up. Don't do this when you make your color palette. Just take the time to do it right. But that's my little cheat. Okay, so we've got our color palette. We'll do designer, if I could spell, type scale, and we'll do developer type scale. And obviously, I mentioned this earlier way back when we did this one. It's not a bad idea to go in and say, you know, body text, button text on this one as well, just so you have an idea of where these are going to be used. But for the sake of time and not making you guys watch me do that, we kind of skipped over that part. I am going to grab my grid. You know what? I'm actually going to grab this one. No, I'm not. I'm going to grab this one. This one's got some examples in it, and if I wanted to, I might put together a little mock-up to more accurately demonstrate those examples, but for this instance, I'm just going to pull this over, and we're going to stick it in here. Now, we'll label this grid system. And then we've got our components, and I went through and I added a few more. I put in some text fields, and you know, you could go a step further and label these on your documentation too. Default, clicked, active, something like that. If you pull them off the screen, their titles come up, but unfortunately on an artboard they don't show up. So I'm going to copy those, and we'll go into handoff, and we'll paste those here as well. And maybe I'll stick these up here. I mean, you're a designer, take the time to actually design out this page that you're handing people. But Again, I don't want you guys to have to sit through that. I'm going to throw it all on an artboard. And maybe I'll make this artboard a slightly different color just so people can see the contrast. You don't have to. Personal choice. But I threw that up there. Now I can't see my labels though, so I don't want to go that dark. Let's be smart about this. They're on an artboard. You can't see labels anyways. So I'm just going to throw it up like that for now. We'll call it good. If I wanted to do this right, I'd go in and I'd actually label these with white text so you can see what we're looking at, which I highly recommend you do. Label everything, guys. Everything. You know, if you're making a button, for example, and this is kind of a tangent, but let's just go into it. If you're making a button and you've got some text in that button, that is a huge button. Sometimes I forget how scaled out we are. But you've got some text in that button, right? Some people will tell you, you know, label this button text, label this button body. Sometimes I'll do that. I don't necessarily get that specific though. Sometimes I'll just group these together and call it a button. People know that that's text. People know that that's the body. Get as detailed as you feel you need to, and it kind of depends on where you work and the people you're working with, how detailed they want you to be. But label everything, guys. Be very concise and what's the word I'm looking for? Be very descriptive of your work so people can very easily see what it is you're presenting to them. So, you know what? Let's do this right. Maybe I'll come in here and we'll add, and I'll turn this to white so we can see it, and we'll call this color palette. And maybe we'll scale it up a little bit. You know, that's on button size. Maybe I'll go to H3 right now. And we can do that throughout. I'm not going to take too much time to align these things. Oh, I don't need to call these masters. Let's just call them components. That's what they are. And then maybe we'll do one down here for, and obviously we need to work on our spacing here a little bit. But I trust you guys to take the time to make yours actually really pretty, and don't just delete stuff like I did because you'll feel like an idiot. You guys get the idea. We're kind of piecing this together. We're giving labels. I can, if I wanted to, I could print this out and hand it to my developer team. I'll probably send it to them electronically, especially when it comes to the components. I want to give them SVGs on those, but you get the idea. I really hope this was helpful, guys. I mean, if you look now, we've got our color palette, we've got components, typography, grid system, all these things we need to hand to people. A real life design system, you're going to have a little bit more. You're going to have documentation that kind of explains the shared vision that you've all come up with, what you're trying to do. But as far as the big assets you're going to need going through your designs and that your developers are going to need to build out, these are the essential pieces that you're going to need. This is how you set them up in Figma so they're all easily accessible to you. I highly recommend you go through this and you try this out with your designs. It's going to take some time to where you feel comfortable with your design system. But perfect practice makes perfect, right? Also, don't feel like you have to do it exactly the same way I did. This is just kind of the system I've gotten into that I feel comfortable with. It's my groove that I fall into. Don't feel like you have to do it that way. Try out some other methods, see what works for you, what works for your team, what works for your company. And as you elevate yourself as a designer, I would love to see what you come up with, what ideas you have, how to improve upon this. Again, leave any comments, feedback you have in the thread, and I would love to hear from any of you. And I will see you guys in the next series. I hope this was helpful. Have a good day.